live now. Are we good to go, Warren?
Yes. I will stop my share screen if you're ready to go. Sorry, 1 second. All right, good to go, Lauren.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody, and I'd like to welcome you all. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. My name is Lauren House. I'm the Managing Director at the DOC Institute. I'm really excited about this conversation, I have to say, and big thanks to Nisha and her team Tiger for joining us. Before we get going, I want to just take a moment to reflect on the land. I know people are kind of tuning in from all sorts of places, so wherever you are located. We at the DOC Institute are located in Toronto, which are the traditional territories of the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, more recently the Mississaugas of the Credit. Ontario itself is covered by 46 treaties and other agreements and is home to many Indigenous nations from across Turtle Island, including the Inuit and the Métis. These treaties and other agreements, including the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, are agreements to peaceably share and care for our land and its resources. Other Indigenous nations, Europeans, and newcomers were invited into this covenant in the spirit of respect, peace, and friendship. We're mindful of broken covenants, and we strive to make this right with the land and with each other. We're all treaty people. We're all part of this conversation. Many of us have come here as settlers, immigrants, newcomers in this generation or past generations. Some of us came forcibly, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. And I also think it's very important to acknowledge beyond our borders the many Indigenous people around the globe who are currently and have been forcibly displaced from their traditional lands. I would like to thank Ontario Creates for supporting our industry development initiatives. And I'm really pleased to have the Directors Guild of Canada partnering with us for tonight's discussion as well. And I'd just like to take a moment to introduce Natalie-Anne Brassard from DGC.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you and good evening, everybody. I'm Natalie-Anne Brassard from the Directors Guild of Canada. The DGC is now very happy to be the union of more than 130 key Canadian documentary directors. And so it's logical that tonight we come to celebrate this amazing, wonderful, beautiful, and vital movie, which is To Kill a Tiger. And we're also very happy and looking forward to delving into this conversation, which is all the mysteries around Oscar campaigns. So without further ado, thank you for everybody and everybody who's joining us as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Natalie-Anne. I just want to make a note that although we have allotted up to 2 hours, everybody's got super busy schedules, so we're not really planning on going much more than an hour. There will be a bit of time for Q&A towards the end. And also note that we're recording this so that it will be available to some members who can't join us tonight. So once again, I'm very pleased to welcome our panelists and just really happy to be here, and thank you all for joining us. To lead the discussion from one nominee to another, it's my pleasure to introduce Oscar nominee Ina Fichman to moderate this discussion. Ina is a Canadian film producer and president of Intuitive Pictures based in Montreal. She's best known for the 2022 film Fire of Love. She won a Gemini for Best History Documentary Program for Undying Love in 2003. She's been nominated for the 34th Producers Guild of America Awards, the British Academy Film Awards, Emmy Critics' Choice Award, and Canadian Screen Awards. Ina was the recipient of the Hot Docs Don Haig Award in 2018. She's on the DOC Canada board, Documentary Organization of Canada, as a board chair, and also a member of the board of the International Documentary Association and a member of the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences. In 2023, she was nominated for an Oscar at the 95th Academy Awards for Best Documentary Feature, Fire of Love. So Ina, over to you.
Well, I have to say it is so exciting to be moderating this conversation. I've known Nisha and Geeta for a long time, and we'll get into the brass tacks very shortly. But for those of you who don't know Nisha, she's a writer, director, and producer, and now she's an Academy Award nominee and Emmy-nominated filmmaker. She's based in Toronto, and her latest film, To Kill a Tiger, had its world premiere at TIFF, which is where I saw it, where it won the Amplify Voices Award for Best Canadian Feature Film. Since then, it's won 26 awards, including Best Documentary Feature at Palm Springs International Film Festival, 3 Canadian Screen Awards, and as you know, so many others. This film grew out of a long career of addressing various human rights issues, notably violence against women in India. And in 2015, Nisha won the Amnesty International Media Award for Canadian journalism after making a short film about the Delhi bus gang rape for Global News. Nisha's other credits include the multi-award winning The World Before Her, which, you know, amongst other things, won Best Documentary Feature, Best Canadian Documentary at Hot Docs, TIFF Canada's Top 10, and again, so many others. Nisha's devotion and commitment to human rights is really part of this conversation for me, because the story of the path to the Oscars for To Kill a Tiger is not just a story about the Oscars, it's a story about independent distribution and how building allies and building community along the way really doesn't just make a difference in terms of getting nominated for an Oscar, but also gets a story out there, which in this climate is very, very difficult. I'm also thrilled to have Geeta Sondhi, who's an executive producer and an impact producer and a real veteran of nonfiction work as both a director and producer as well. Her credits include shorts, feature-length films, series. She's programmed films for TIFF. TIFF worked alongside luminaries at for the National Film Board, managed funding programs. I mean, I could go on and on about Geeta. Credits include Stand Up Toronto, The Art of Losing Things, and she is currently producing the awards and impact campaign for Nisha's film. Again, someone who I just have beyond respect for this incredible path she's taken, as well as an independent producer and executive producer. Do we have Archana with us, or do we have someone else from Product of Culture?
That would be me. Archana wasn't able to join, but I am the co-founder of Product of Culture, and my name is Monica Sharma.
And so nice to meet you, and hopefully you'll tell us a little bit more when we get into the Q&A about what you do. And I met Annalisa Shoemaker, I guess it was a few weeks ago in LA, and all I could say is, oh my God, wow. What this woman is doing for independent film, for distribution of film, not just this film, is really extraordinary. And, you know, I think we have a lot of lessons to learn from this team. And without further ado, I'd love to take a deep dive into To Kill a Tiger. And my first question is for Nisha. You know, I know that, you know, like many films, like many independent films, you know, the struggle to get a home for your film, to distribute it beyond Canada, even distribute it in Canada is a challenge. But then to decide, okay, I'm going to make this film eligible for an Oscar. I'm just going to do it. And I'm very curious to know what inspired you to take this path, and what were the first steps? When did you decide I'm going to do this?
Well, it was during a conversation that I was having with a number of people who'd seen the film, and they said, you know, we feel this film could really go the distance. Like it has the potential to do that. And as soon as they said that, and this was just before TIFF, but as soon as they said that, I thought, okay, I'm just going to make this happen. I'm going to take this as far as I can. because I knew that the story was really special, and it's really, really hard to capture in the field a story that has an organic beginning, middle, and end. That is also kind of a call, like kind of a call to change, and has this sort of really kind of perfect narrative. And it's so hard, right? It's so hard to make those kinds of films in the field, right? You don't get those stories. You don't come across those stories very often. And as soon as they said, this could go far. There were people around the film that said this could go really far. And I just at that moment decided, okay, I'm gonna see how far I can take it. And I began to raise. I have this incredible group of executive producers in the United States who
And were they involved at that point as well from the very beginning? Tell us a little bit about that, because I think we have, we'll talk a little bit about eligibility for Oscars and what one needs to do. That's a very unusual move for a Canadian producer to bring on other EPs. Why did you do that?
Because I needed the money. It's that simple. I know. I needed the money.
So did they put money into the actual film itself?
So what they did was they actually put money into the film, right? They're part of our financing, along with the NFB, which is our co-producer, and Telefilm and Rogers, and TVO and Knowledge. But we also did raise like a significant portion of funds from our US executive producers. And one of them in particular has been a friend of mine for many, many years. His name is Andy Cohen. And then I brought on others just who became, who introduced me through another friend. And it just, the village kind of grew, right, of people who wanted to first support the actual documentary, because remember, it also took 8 years to make, right? So we were constantly needing to raise money. And then once I decided that I was going to do this awards campaign, I just reached out to them again and said, "What do you think? Will you support this?" And they did. And I think what also helped was bringing on people like Mindy Kaling and Dev Patel.
No, for sure.
Right. And that really kind of gave us oxygen. It gave the EPs that were already invested a reason to invest further. It brought on new executive producers who wanted to get involved in the campaign. So it just was really a very organic process. And really a lot of it was just was fundraising and kind of figuring out the ecosystem and how things worked. And once I had a little bit of funding, then I started to bring on this incredible team of women that are in front of you, right? So Geeta, of course, Annalisa, Monica, and Archana, and then a number of other people who aren't here. But it's this village of women. It's this really incredible team of women who are at it 24/7. We have amazing support from men as well, but we're kind of in the trenches every day.
Yeah, I guess what I really want to, many people on this Zoom have never been part of an Oscar campaign. I was with Fire of Love, but in a very, very different circumstance. We had, National Geographic documentary films backing a campaign. I don't want to say money was no object. That's not a fair thing to say, but they were incredibly generous. They'd run many campaigns in the past. And that's why this, I'd like us to talk, if we can, about specifics, so that the Canadians on this call, which is most people, can understand, okay, you decide your film is Oscar worthy or campaign worthy, because it's not just Oscars, it's BAFTAs, it's Spirit Awards, it's DGA, it's PGA, it's ACE Awards, because they're all very connected. You made that decision probably around TIFF. So then, just so we can take people through this, your film has to become eligible. It's not automatic. What did that entail? Just so people understand, your film has to play for 7 consecutive days in either New York, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Chicago, Miami. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 other markets, or it has to have won a prize at a festival like Hot Docs, and then you're eligible.
Yeah.
So what did you do? How did you make that happen?
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, we had like in the US, we had distribution offers. There were distributors who were interested in the film and who wanted to release the film. But what they were offering to me felt it wasn't enough. You know, I didn't feel like I wanted to give them the US rights for an MG that wasn't going to move the needle, and also that they weren't going to invest in the they weren't going to invest the money or the time or the energy into the campaign, into the release, because for them it's just another product that they have to move. You know, sorry, I'm just coughing. Hang on. Maybe Annalisa, will you take it over for 1 sec? Just talk about what you did.
Yeah. So from a technical standpoint, to qualify, we released in New York City at the Film Forum, which is a fantastic theater, in October 20th of last year, 2023. And so they like literally, played the film for 7 consecutive. Actually, it held over because the grosses were so good. It held over for future weeks. And so they played the film, they met the qualifications, and then they actually write a letter saying we played it at these show times, these dates, and that's part of the submission to the Academy.
Yeah. So because I didn't feel like the US distributors really understood what we were trying to do and the importance and kind of the value of it, you know, like I was really determined to kind of go as far as I could. And I had a lot of faith in the film. And because of the market being what it is, it's a business for them, right? And so the market is what it is. And the market isn't necessarily friendly to a film like this, which is about a difficult subject. It's subtitled. Nobody wanted to buy it. And yet I felt like we had this work that was extremely special and was really going to move the needle in terms of gender and sexual violence. And I felt like we could really use it to start a major conversation. You know, one of the reasons Annalisa was so perfect for us when we were thinking about people to work with in terms of the theatrical rollout of the film is because she said, this isn't a movie, it's a movement. And it always felt like, exactly, like you want to work with people who understand kind of the underlying ethos of sorry to interrupt, Nisha, but did Annalise, were you the one who did the bookings for the qualifying period?
Yeah, exactly. And what I would add is you can't just do the bare minimum, right? Like you don't want to just check the box and technically qualify. That's really not enough. I like to say we want to start these little sparks all across the country and be really intentional on which theaters and which markets and when, to then hopefully that spark grows and becomes this like raging fire that we are now in the middle of, which is so exciting. So yes, we did multiple theaters.
Yeah. I think the point you raise is really important. I mean, I'm an AMPAS member. And the way it works is, you know, for the first round, you see there's 167. One year there was over 200 films that have qualified. And then they assign films to you. And it's really only the films that for some reason people are talking about or have won prizes at major festivals. And I think what's so miraculous about I don't want to use the word miraculous, but incredible about what you guys have done here is this film was really not on the radar of most of us documentary branch members when we were, you know, looking at our assigned viewing or had seen films at Sundance or at Berlin or in Cannes. Like, so I just want to understand, what was the next step for you? You know, how did you get this? And Geeta, maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, about getting this in front of people and also the movement that you guys basically created around this film.
Well, you know, absolutely. For me, when Nisha approached me, I was just like, okay, but why don't you get someone who's done this before and get them to do it? And I realize now that I think, the reason that she came to me was because we're documentary filmmakers, and we will, go to all lengths to figure something out. We talk to so many people. Annalisa got that bouquet of theaters, is what I used to call it, right? She's doing a bouquet of theaters. It was really challenging at first. That's how Monica and Archana initially came to work with us, was because we had the bouquet of theaters, and sometimes there'd be 3 people in them. And we were just like, so like this trajectory is just extraordinary of what has happened. So, we kind of slogged away at it, to be honest, and we did it in a multi-tiered way. We had this is all, Nisha had, through Dev Patel, actually gotten us this extraordinary publicity company called Shelter. They were doing kind of the higher, like really higher tiered stuff. There was articles in People magazine, like really, broader. And then we had Product of Culture, Monica and Archana. They were doing a lot of work with South Asian community in different ways. And we brought on Adam Siegel, 2050 Group. And in Europe, then this all kind of came out and over time, rolled out over time as we started to. Sorry, I should also go back one step, which is there was a broader strategy, and then there was the strategy to connect to the DOC branch, right? So we did when we consulted with you, Ina, like we went to DOC NYC, right? We met people there. We talked to all kinds of different people. So as we were connecting with arenas that would put the film out in places and ways that would connect with the documentary branch members in a more direct way, we also were doing the broader stuff. And then Nisha went to Europe. We brought on a company called WDM, and Nisha went to Copenhagen. The We Foundation, we kept connecting with different places, right? So the We Foundation there, she went to London, did various screenings there. Dev Patel was a king, as we say, a prince. He's such an ally. He came to a screening in London, and the press was coming out, right? So it was just this momentum build, and that's what got us, I think, to shortlist, and then shortlist to nomination is a whole other thing. But I'll leave it there.
Yeah, we'll talk about that afterwards. And I guess, look, we're all Canadian producers. Some of us work in the States, but many of us, we make a film, it wins a prize, or, people are talking a lot about it. Ballpark figure, what does it cost? Because you're traveling.
I'll tell you. And I should just also say that, yes, a lot of our funding has come from our executive producers in the US, but we also are supported by Telefilm and the NFB.
Great.
They
good to know.
Absolutely.
So just to give people an idea, like you have to hire. I remember many years ago, I had a film that was Palestine's entry to the Oscars, The Wanted 18. And we just, this was a long time ago, maybe close to a decade ago. And we just said, forget it. Like, where are we going to get this money? Right? To do this.
It was Ina, like it was more than the budget of the film, right? For sure. And
for sure.
So, I mean, I don't mind. It's about 1.3 million US is what this has cost us. And it's crazy expensive. It's really,
but it's also a 10th to a 15th of what, bigger, like, some of the streamers and distributors can put into this. Yeah. And it's very, just sorry to interrupt, but it's also Nisha's contacts, and her contacts are directly related to her body of work, right? And they know how committed she is, and they've seen her work. And so they support her, and they're in it for the long term, right? So it is in some ways, I would say, very much about Nisha and about her body of work, her contacts and her commitment, and just, love of the film and commitment to, as you had said earlier, justice issues, right? And in particular around sexual violence. Sorry to interrupt. I just had to throw that in.
So like a lesson to be learned is build your allies,
Yeah.
you know, bring people into your orbit
Yes.
who,
Yes.
you know, believe in you as a filmmaker, believe in the work you're doing, believe in the cause, in the movement, as you put it.
And also, you know, I have to say, Ina, celebrity helps. It really helps. So, you know, I mean, I remember there was one moment where I called Geeta. So, you know, the news was released about both Dev and Mindy forwarding the film as EPs, right? And it dropped in Variety, Deadline, and The Hollywood Reporter. And like literally an hour later, I'd raised $300,000, you know, and
It's like she goes, Geeta, it was so crazy.
We just raised $300,000, you know? So
No, it's she, but anyway.
And because other people wanted to help and wanted their name on the film, or what was that?
People, well, suddenly there was legitimacy, right? Like, and these were people who I didn't know, you know, these were people who I had met, but they didn't know me, you know, very well. And I'd been telling them about the film and what I was doing, and that, you know, I was trying to get this awards campaign happening, and I kept trying to get them to watch the film, but there wasn't really a lot of interest. But as soon as they saw the headlines, they called me, you know, and said, okay, let's do this.
And you hadn't approached these people before?
I had approached them before, but the headlines is what actually sort of, you know, sealed it for them. But now those people have become such a big part of the fold, right? Because again, it's as you say also, Ina, and the reason I approached them is because I felt that our values aligned in terms of gender and gender justice. Like that's why I approached them in the beginning. And so when you see names like Mindy Kaling and Dev Patel, suddenly they're taking you seriously, and now because they see, you know, just how committed we are as a team. To really use the film to create change, you know, they're part of they just become part of the fold.
I have to say, and I brought this up early, and I'd love to hear from Monica on this at some point, right now actually. It's really not just about being attached to a glitzy project, you know. It's about being attached to something that's going to make a difference, and that, you know, is connecting with communities. And Monica, that's probably why you guys came on board, why Project of Culture embarked on this campaign.
Yeah, I mean, we've known Nisha for a long time. We've supported her past work. We screened some of it in Chicago. And I want to bring up something that you said earlier about having a distributor behind you. As Product of Culture, we have done marketing for other Oscar campaigns like The Elephant Whisperers, where they're backed by a Netflix. And a lot of the strategy there ends up being put money behind it, e-blasts, you know, billboards, things like that. And so I think what's so special about this film and the way Nisha and Geeta both are is that we got to be really creative with how we were spending those marketing dollars. And we got to really hone in on what the messaging of the film is and who are those demographics that can really relate to the issues that are there. And so a lot of the effort, especially pre-shortlist, was how can we break up the buckets of people that will be interested in this film? So for us, that was the South Asian community, which again, with EPs like Mindy and Dev, it was very easy. It was a lot easier for us to get the backing, and with Nisha and all the work she's done, it was very easy for us to get that buy-in in the community and encourage them to advocate for the film. The other group I would say are the impact-driven nonprofits like Equality Now, Sakhi, there's another organization, SOAR. Because their mission aligned with what the film was about, it was also very easy to approach them with the film and say, hey, we would love your help with outreach. And a lot of those instances, you know, they're not asking for anything. They're saying, wow, this film exists. We just want to support it. So I think also just what are those things that maybe don't cost money, that it's just about that time and energy of doing those reach outs. And we had some really great people on our team, Miriam and Zainab, who did a lot of that work. And then I think the third group and the bucket that was the hardest to approach, but also equally just supportive, are different types of film communities and fraternities, right? Especially like the Canadian groups have been so supportive a lot of women in film groups, Women Make Movies, trying to find those film communities that can also be advocates for your film. And I think what you were talking about getting the word out, when you don't have that money to just push behind, you know, ads, you need that grassroots effort to be more about conversation. And so for us, we were just so lucky to have all these different people advocating for the film. And so we were able to do it at a much smaller budget. And I think in a much more meaningful way than some of the other films. And I think we also saw that with documentary this year, where a lot of the films that did make it to the next level, they weren't necessarily attached to some of the bigger distributors. So I think there's something to be said about that strategy.
Absolutely. And hopefully that has an impact on not just an awards campaign, but presumably on distribution as well.
Absolutely.
I don't know who would like
and
to speak to that.
I'm sure Geeta can also talk more about this, but I think another part of the reason why so many of the conversations were so easy to have is because the point was, I mean, of course, we're running an Oscar campaign, and that is a huge part of the goal, but the larger part of what we were trying to do is also this impact campaign with the film. And so in talking about what we were hoping with the impact, also encouraged people to support the film in a much more just long-term.
Yeah.
Nisha, did you want to talk a little bit about, and we'll go back to the once you were shortlisted, then what? Really, you know, the distribution path of this film, I think, was challenging for you. Like we talked about this post-TIFF.
Yeah.
And how do you grapple with that? And, you know, post-TIFF, what are we talking about, a year and a half ago now, almost 2 years ago?
Yeah.
It's gotten even more difficult. How did you figure out, you know what, damn the torpedoes, I'm going to make this work? And how did you make it work?
I think, I don't know. I just don't give up, you know, Ina.
That is so true. That is so true.
Yeah,
Relentless. And, you know, when she's not offered enough, she's just like, yeah, I'm not doing it. And it's what Monica just said, right? It's like we're so situated in the impact and the reason why, that when you know that, the pieces fall into place and decisions are easier, right? Like, yes, I'm going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. Sorry, Nisha, keep going. But yeah.
There were some really, I had so many conversations with Annalisa, and Annalisa can fill you in on these conversations that we had and these amazing ideas. Like, I thought they were amazing because there was also a part of me, like, had the Netflix deal not come through, you know, there were a lot of things that I was balancing, Ina. You know, I was told that there were some offers on the table. And I
remember that.
Yeah. And I was told that if I didn't take those, it wouldn't bode well for our Oscar run, you know? Like, people wouldn't take us seriously, you know, because now, like, we managed to, when you're being nominated, right? Like up until you're nominated, the only branch that you're concerned with is the DOC branch, and then it opens up to the entire academy. Yeah, and so, you know, we'd been lucky because obviously the DOC branch embraced the film. But if we didn't, what I was told is that if I didn't sort of accept the offers that were coming, it probably, like, nobody was going to take us seriously after that. And so I had these conversations with Annalisa, and there was a part of me, and I was saying, like, should we just say, like, screw it and just disrupt the whole system? Like, you know, instead of capitulating, I mean, because we've come this far on our own, and clearly the distribution model, the distribution ecosystem is broken. Like, if a film like this that has taken 8 years, that's won 26 awards, you know, is nominated for an Oscar, still can't get a proper deal, maybe there's a problem, and we should just take it on and you know, shift it. So Annalisa and I had these conversations a lot, and it was just about, you know, what do I do? What's the best thing? What's the best thing to do for the film? And then that.
So basically, you know, Annalisa was responsible for, quote unquote, booking, distributing the film, as opposed to a film movement or a Kino Lorber or some of the kind of smaller US distributors that frankly don't have the money to do a campaign, and, you know, also have in their own way limited capacity in terms of marketing. And it was, I guess, what you're saying is, as an independent producer, you just said, listen, I can do this as well, if not better.
Yeah, that was exactly what it was. It was, and it wasn't I can, it was we can.
We can, yes. So it's about having that team around you, having the likes of Annalisa and Monica and Geeta, which I think is really important. You know, we all bring different skill sets and experiences to the table. And I think you were very smart and very strategic. And I think producers in Canada everywhere can learn from that, as we all struggle with, you know, we have this film, well, maybe it doesn't get into TIFF, right, and it gets into regional festivals. But, and Annalisa, maybe you could talk to this again before we go to the next phase. You know, if you don't have the 26 awards and you don't have, you know, a TIFF or a Sundance, can you still make this happen and work for yourself?
Absolutely. It's what are your goals as a filmmaker, and work backwards from that, right? Step one, who are the stakeholders and what are their goals? And you can always find a way to connect with your audiences. And there are huge audiences out there for your film. You just have to get the word out and figure out how to do that. And in our case, like Monica spoke about, a lot of grassroots reaching out. And although the distribution landscape has changed so much, and I was on the studio side of things, I worked at Amazon Studios for over 7 years, where we would spend a lot of money on awards campaigns, which I won't go into. But what's so exciting about this moment now is it's not working. It's not distribution, traditional theatrical distribution. It's not working for distributors. It's not working for filmmakers. And it's not working for a lot of exhibitors either. So for me, I'm so excited about this time, because there's so many opportunities to try new things, think outside the box. And I mean, it worked in this case. So it's a proof that it can succeed.
Yeah, because I think, you know, all of us, many of us are like, oh my God, my film and did not get into Sundance, or even my film didn't get into Hot Docs. Now what? And I think what I'm you know, granted, TIFF, 26 awards, all of that. You just said, you know, we know there's an audience for this film, and we're going to find it, and we're going to do what we need to do. But that took some money. And I think that that's about, again, you know, and I'm not even saying 1.3 million. How much was your publicity budget, just out of curiosity? You had Shelter, you had Adam, Tiff Malloy.
Tiffany Malloy has to be mentioned, yeah.
I just said Tiffany, and I said she's one of the most brilliant PR strategists for the Oscar campaigns. She worked on Fire of Love. I can't, there's nobody better. So she's really, like, she just knows what to do. So
she's
what is
so
that?
Instrumental in this.
What is that? What is the price tag just for that? Never mind all your travel.
No idea, but I would say a few thousand.
A few 100,000, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
Rough calculations in my mind. It's about that. Yeah.
About 150.
Yeah, about 150. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that that's, you know, again, if a filmmaker, a producer, a director wants to go full steam ahead, it is about having those resources. And I think that, you know, we see this in the, you know, even in the international feature films that I vote in, and every year there's a Canadian film, obviously, and I go, oh my God, like, how are they going to do it? Telefilm is generous, but it's not generous enough, right? Because it's a really big deal to do this. And once you get, like, because I know we don't have hours left and we can talk about this forever. Once you get shortlisted, then what? Like, what did you guys do? Like, you were like, oh my God, this is so exciting. I have to raise more money.
Yes. I mean, literally.
Well, I remember the eve of the shortlist. I was just like, this is happening. And some people, remember that Shelter, we had a meeting and they were like, well, if we should be so lucky. And I was just like, it's happening. Let's plan for it. And so remember that meeting? I was just like, it's happening. We're planning. That's it. So yeah, I mean, it was a matter of upping the ante and just going there. And we were all watching Nisha in awe as we scheduled her from one appearance to the next, to the next, to the next. And you know, that's what it took. It took going in person to so many places, doing so many press interviews at every level, while, just keeping going and going and going and going at every possible opportunity. And then one thing that, Annalisa talks about is eventizing these screenings, right? So whether they're non-FYC or FYC, really bringing in the right moderator, having the right panel, having Nisha be present, all of these things really, really contributed. And then so many, you can actually see on our YouTube channel, or you can see it in the website as well. You'll just see how many panels she did. And we put everything out there, right? So that people could get it, could engage.
Mm-hmm. I'll just add to this, and maybe you guys can also add, like Annalisa and Monica, but Geeta and I sometimes have kind of tracked the campaign in terms of those pivotal moments where we started to feel like, okay, things were happening. Because, up until I would say September, right? Or it was September, I think, right, Geeta? Like, one of the things that we kind of realized is we needed a publicist. We needed to bring on a publicist that was specializing in documentary, right? That had that specialty. And so I think bringing on Adam and then bringing on Tiffany was really.
It was end of October, actually, Nisha.
Yeah, it was.
It was late in the process.
But we started to have those conversations and go, okay, we need to bring, like, we need Shelter to do what they're doing, which is incredible and extraordinary. But we also need people to help us get access to the documentary branch and put our film forward, and that was really instrumental. And then I think that there were certain moments, like there was the conversation with Alex Gibney. I think that moved the needle, I think that helped. I think the screening in Los Angeles that Annalisa organized with Ted Hope.
Ted Hope was a turning point. Alex Gibney was a turning point, and Ted Hope was a turning point.
And who told, like, I remember with Fire of Love, especially once we got nominated, because you can no longer have parties. It's like really very, very strict. The choices of who would nominate these either virtual, in-person Q&As, who helped you with that? Like, who said, okay, we got to get Alex Gibney?
Honestly, Ina, we just sort of pulled up our sleeves, and all of us, like, it really has been this tremendous group effort, and everyone is kind of brainstorming and throwing out ideas, and what about this person, and what about that person, and everyone brought something to the table, So,
and we got fearless, didn't we, Nisha? Like, we were with you guys. It was fearless. It was like, who would you blue sky? Okay, go to them.
Yeah.
Now, I'll say one more thing about that. I think something that in the beginning we were careful about, but doesn't really matter, is that yes, ask everybody, because if they can't show up for an in-person screening, the way people are now, do a virtual Q&A. It's on Zoom. It doesn't cost anything. People can do it from wherever. You can include a lot of those conversations in your blast. You can put them on social media. You can include them in targeted blasts to different groups. You can have them cross-promote on their social media. So there's so many options for people to participate in a film that if someone was like, oh, I can't do an in-person screening because I won't be in LA, we were like, great, how about virtual? Great, could you come to this instead? So I think just ask, shoot your shot.
And Monica set us up with this great platform, Cinesend, right, Monica?
Yeah, Cinesend's amazing.
Right? And that was just wonderful.
It was a game changer for us, because with the way Cinesend is, they really protect your film. And so we were able to just crank out virtual screenings. And so for a lot of these different film groups, or even just like, like for TIFF, for example, we were like, hey, we'd love to host a virtual screening. They're like, great, we're happy to invite our entire, we're happy to send out an e-blast and invite our entire network. And it doesn't cost, the platform costs something, but once you're on it, the screenings don't cost quite a bit. And so for us, it's like, okay, every Sunday we're going to do, one virtual screening or 2 virtual screenings, and just rack up these different moderated Q&As and then share it on social media. So I think just making the most of whatever you're doing and finding ways to repurpose that content in different ways, or even like the Alex Gibney conversation, if it's in person, record it, take photos of it, post those photos, post the interview. There's no shortage of ways to repurpose content and get creative. And I think everyone on this team was really great about that.
And it's who your connections are. Like Nisha had won the Amplify Voices Award at TIFF. So then, that was a connection for us. So it's
Absolutely.
just who with your particular film, who can you go to? Who can, help you to connect?
Your film and your career, right?
That too. Absolutely. And people on the team, right?
And people on the team and their
where.
relationships.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting, like having gone through it with Nat Geo. I mean, Carolyn Bernstein, who I think she's the executive vice president of Nat Geo Documentary Films. I'm sorry, I can't remember her title. I mean, she's been working in Hollywood for 30 years. She knows everybody. And so when you're part of a studio system, you have access. But when you're and she did a brilliant job, but when you're an independent producer, it's like, as you said, sitting in a room with your peers, your gang, and you're like, oh, we want this person. How do we get to them? And I think you did a really fantastic job. I know there's going to be questions, but I want to touch upon a few more things before we open it up. And one of those things that I want to talk about, because again, I felt this when I was doing Fire of Love and watching Sarah Dosa just travel around the world for almost a year. She did an extraordinary job. She showed up one day in Paris, then the next day in London, or I should say London, and then Berlin, and was there looking wonderful and answering press questions and doing Q&As. Like, how the hell is this sustainable for an independent filmmaker? You're not getting paid to do this, or are you? Or do you say, you know what? I've raised $1.3 million. Some of that's going to cover me.
And that's the really interesting thing about this, Ina. Like, I've raised all of this money, and honestly, what I have paid myself is so pathetic. And my husband is so furious. He's just like, what are you doing? But that's the reality, because it is so expensive. It is so expensive to run these campaigns, right? I mean, just the cost of getting films to the theaters, like the marketing costs, like the cost of your team, the cost of travel, everything. It is so expensive. These e-blasts, that's right? Like, it's unbelievable. I mean, how much money have we spent on these e-blasts?
Which go to the Academy, and every headline has to say Dev Patel speaks to Nisha Pahuja, right? So that everyone goes, oh wow, Dev did, or Chelsea Clinton last week, right? So it's pretty like I guess my point in all of this is, as filmmakers, and I include producers in that, we want to have sustainable careers, and then we get on this either festival or campaign bandwagon, or impact campaign bandwagon. How do we make this viable for everybody?
Ina, I've been thinking about this a lot. I really, really have. I've been thinking about it a lot. Like, there's something broken. There's something broken in this system. And for me, the greatest irony is that as doc filmmakers, as people who are part of this particular kind of industry and storytelling, so much of us do this because we believe in improving the lives of others. Like, we have a belief in social justice, and yet we ourselves, it's really tragic. It's kind of tragic, and I realize, for me, this is a life. It's the life that I've chosen for myself, and I'm not going to complain about it, because it is something that I've chosen. I could do something else. I've chosen this, but I don't know what the solution is. I don't know how to fix the system. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm very, very aware of the problem.
But it is also like, on your production, your documentary production, somehow or the other, you're gonna pay your editor 10 times more than you're going to pay you, because
Sure.
that is what the going rate is, and you will come up with that money. So there is also that aspect of it, right? And then eventually, hopefully you'll make a sale and get something back. But there is that entrepreneurial risk for the copyright owner, producer. It just is. And it is so difficult and unbelievable that we do it time and time again in the face of what Nisha just described. But, you come up with the money. Or maybe, as we've been talking, I probably shouldn't say this because you want to always give everyone hope, but I'll put it on myself. I made a short film a little while, actually about 6-7 years ago, and I made it for CBC Digital. And a friend of mine the other day said, you could have gone for an Oscar with that film. But you know what? I got 27 million views on social media. And I couldn't have gone for an Oscar because it was digitally broadcast. But you know what? That was what that film was about. And that was where that film should have gone. And it did reach all of those people around the world several times. And it was incredible. And maybe we don't all have to feel like every film we make takes this journey. Because, you don't want people to be broke and thinking that they're going to be able to do something that is just not going to be in the cards. Sorry to say that, but just to be, this film was special. And I think what Nisha began with is so important. She said, we were having that conversation and everyone said, you know what, this has the potential to go that distance. And it does. And we are all so committed. Why is everyone working so hard? Because we're rooted by the social issue and the justice issue at its core. And Nisha and I have said always, we still say it, everybody on the team, it is for impact. And the Oscar is brilliant. And it actually gives an avenue for impact that there is no other avenue like it. But it is ultimately an avenue to impact. And whether this Oscar is won or not, we've won and we're going there and we're going to go there. The film will go.
Here's my last comment is that is all great. However, this is how we make our living. And without editorializing, I think it's important to keep in mind that we have to be sustainable as individuals and as companies, and that the machine can't expect us to just only put our hearts and souls into things.
Yeah.
There has to be a payback and a financial payback. And I think that, I'll never forget a number of years ago, I was at one of the IDA's Getting Real conference, and it was a closed session about impact producing. And, when I mean closed, it couldn't be you had to be a producer or director to be there. And a few of the teams who got on stage were talking about, we raised money, but there was always money in there for us. So we could travel and get paid when we traveled. And I know the National Film Board, when a director does Q&As or shows up, they pay them. And I think, without spending too much time on that, I think we have to, yes, it's exciting to travel around the world, but it's also exhausting. And Nisha, it doesn't allow you as a filmmaker to even work on your next project.
Absolutely. I mean, look at me. Like, look, I've had terrible hair days for a week. You know what I mean?
You're gonna look gorgeous.
But then what is the solution? Is it to do 5 less e-blasts and Nisha can actually pay herself? Like, what is it?
Yes.
What is the solution?
I think we have to talk about that solution, because yes, it's about respecting everyone in the team, including the filmmakers.
Including the filmmakers, and including the producers.
Because it's really a tough slog. And I have eminent respect when I watch Sarah do it, when I watch you do it, when I watched, the director of All That Breathes, he was, and Daniel Rohr, I was like, oh my God, you guys are wiped. And sure, it's good for your career, there's no question. But I also think we have to talk about sustainability of those of us who work in the industry. And I will leave it at that. And I think I'm going to open the floor up to questions, but I just want to say, I cannot express how proud I am of all of you and the work you've done. It's just marvelous. And, as I said before, it's not just about the Oscars, it's about believing in the distribution of your film and taking that in hand and not accepting bureaucracies who tell you no, or distributors who say, well, sorry, we can spend $5,000 on getting your film out there. It's really understanding who your communities are and saying they're going to come.
Yeah.
So really brilliant move. I don't know how this question thing works, so I feel a little naive. I know there's one question about publicists, but we answered that. How is this going to work in terms of asking questions? Do people put the questions in the chat?
Yeah, we at the beginning, it's Lauren again. I've asked people if they do have questions to put it into the Q&A box.
Yep.
Okay.
Rather than the chat. So
okay, I'm in the Q&A box.
For everybody.
There's actually only one question in the Q&A.
Yeah.
Box,
so
and I think
anyone else who's on the call that wants, there we go.
Here we go. Was there a turning point, and this is probably for Nisha, where you realized that the film had a shot?
Yeah, I would say that during the screenings, after we were shortlisted and we started to do our second kind of round of screenings, both in the United States and in Europe, I started to feel, okay, there's real love here. There's real momentum. There's real momentum here. Lots of conversations that I was having with people. Every single one of our screenings that Annalisa and Tiffany and Arch and Mon organized, every single one was sold out. Every single one. We had like full houses, incredible Q&As, great moderators. So it just felt like the tide had started to turn. And like I said, Geeta and I we were able to kind of pinpoint sort of pivotal moments. And, the Alex Gibney interview was one for sure. The Ted Hope screening was one. I think Sinan Keshki, we did a screening with Sinan, which was beautiful. So it just started to feel like things were turning. And I think Geeta always felt Geeta always was
did.
Going here. We're going here.
I really did, because I feel like I had my ear a little bit to the ground with the doc filmmakers. I was just hearing people talking, and you could kind of feel it, and you felt that. You knew. I also knew that the film itself could go there, as we all did. We all did.
Yeah.
But it was, that said, to go from like 3 or 4 people, and remember, Kiki really remembers when we had 3 or 4 people in Dallas, one of our, one of our funders, their parents who really had the fund that was being, tapped for us, was in the audience, the parents, and like I think 5 or 6 people showed up, and I was just like, get people into that theater. Just remember that. So from that to this, where everything is sold out, and everybody's like, we need to see the film. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to say that.
So there are a few more questions, and some of them don't have anything to do with the campaign. Somebody asked here, an anonymous attendee, how do people help with your continued fundraising? I don't quite understand this question. I'm wondering if it's like, do you need more money, and how do the people help you with that?
Oh, we always
make movies and creative visions.
Yeah, I mean, if you're American, we have 2 501c partners that we work with.
501(c)(3)s, yes.
501(c)(3)s, Women Make Movies and Creative Visions. And then in Canada, we don't, but like we're always looking for support to keep going, and not just for the film and the awards campaign, but also because beyond, right? Because we are doing a huge impact campaign with the film following the Oscars, which we're thinking we're going to start around Father's Day. Like we're working with Equality Now, which is a global women's rights organization. So we're thinking of launching something on Father's Day.
And do you know when the film will go on Netflix?
I do, but I'm not allowed to say right now.
Okay, fine. And there are 2 questions that I feel that are kind of related. Where you got the idea of making the documentary, and that how long was pre-production, production, and post-production? And somebody else asked, and did you bring on a team to do all of this? So this is really about the production side of things.
Yeah. So I had a producing partner named Cornelia Principe, and then we also worked with the National Film Board of Canada, who's our co-producer, and David Oppenheim was our producer at the NFB, and Anita Lee was our EP there, and she essentially greenlit the project. She was a real champion, continues to be an extraordinary champion of the film. So the film was about 1.5 years of research, and then 3.5 years of filming in the field, and then 3 years of editing. And I had a number of DPs that I worked with in India, including my husband, who shot most of the film, and this incredible sound recordist that we always work with named Anita Kushwaha. And in the field, we sometimes had assistants. We had our driver, Afzal Bhai, who was incredible. And every now and then we had an assistant, but for the most part, it was just this kind of really tight team of 4 people. And then in terms of post-production, I worked with 2 editors on this film. And that was incredible, an extraordinary experience. So Dave Kazala and Mike Munn, and they were just brilliant. Yeah, brilliant.
And getting back to the campaign side of things, did you assemble the A-list EPs in the production phase, or did that happen once you made the decision to go to the Oscars? And this person's wondering if we should be finding celebrities for our films right away, or is this the future of distributing a documentary? Like, think about that when you sign your production deal.
Yeah. I mean, it's tricky. I think for me, I remember having this conversation with Anita Lee and Natalie. I think when the film was at a fine cut, because I had taken a break and I'd gone to India and I had shown people the film, and everyone that I was showing the film to was saying, this is an incredible film, but no one's going to buy this film. Like, Amazon's not going to buy this. Netflix isn't going to buy this. No one's going to buy your film. And I thought to myself, the only way people are going to take this film seriously, the only way people are going to sort of kind of come into the tent, because it is a tough subject, right? Like, really, who wants to watch a documentary about a 13-year-old sexual assault survivor? It's a hard film to want to watch, even though the story itself is actually one of real kind of love and resilience and optimism. So I knew at that stage that if I didn't bring on celebrity support, the film wasn't gonna, it would just die, it wasn't gonna go anywhere. And so I started to talk about, who we could bring on, the people that I could bring on. And then I had Atul Gawande, who's a really well-known, obviously American writer and surgeon. And he was an EP from the very beginning. So, and he opened the door to Mindy Kaling, and then an amazing friend of mine named Priya Doraiswamy, who just knows everyone. And if she doesn't know everyone, she's going to get to know everyone. She's like Geeta, completely sort of fearless and a ton of tenacity. And Priya helped to bring on Dev Patel. So, yeah.
That's amazing. And, this is a very quick answer. Will Ranjit and Kiran go to the Oscars?
We'll know tomorrow, because they have their US visa appointment tomorrow. So
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yep.
And I'm just looking at all the questions here. I guess the question that someone asked, which I think is a really interesting one, can you speak to working with the NFB on the project? What were the conversations with with them at the beginning, also after release, and as the momentum started to build? And in other words, what was their involvement in this whole, US distribution and campaign? And how did you work with American and Canadian producers at the same time and have their goals and funds align? Mm-hmm. So this is an important question. Great having question. US equity as well.
Yeah.
In a Canadian show.
Yeah. So we so in terms of the producing, stuff, that stuff was really kind of handled by Cornelia. So she was able to kind of figure out, the balance and just making sure that we were still kind of a Canadian production. And with the NFB, just with their involvement, they've been real, like Natalie at the NFB, who's sort of the head of distribution. She's incredible, and she really wants the best for the films that she takes on, to the point where she will really work with you, and it's a really respectful environment. So she just kind of really, the NFB the NFB kind of really allowed me to run with this in the way that
they gave you the rights back, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
They did. Yeah. So they let me run with it in the way I wanted to. Yeah.
Right. Sorry, there's just so many questions here. And I'm trying to find the next one that makes sense. This is really for Annalisa. What is your process of distributing a film like this?
Oh, good question. That's a big question. Yeah. So it's really, what are the filmmakers
in 3 minutes or less?
Okay, what are the filmmakers' goals? And then you put together a plan on a strategy about how you're going to execute that. So in this case, really looking at art houses and specialty theaters across the United States that our core audiences frequent, right? So then you're also having the theaters, the cinemas, do a lot of their marketing. They're playing the trailer in their theaters. They're posting about it on social. It's going into dedicated email blasts on their end. Really using the theaters to do that heavy lifting from a marketing standpoint. But you've got to find those right locations. So for example, in Los Angeles, that's like the Laemmle theaters are fantastic for that. A nationwide specialty circuit that's been super supportive of us is Landmark Theaters. But then again, small independent theaters in Chicago, the Gene Siskel Film Center, the Music Box, all of these little places across the country that, like I said, can start these fires of conversation, sparks, and you build off from there. So especially like Geeta said earlier, eventizing screenings. So opening weekend was just New York, and we had Nisha in New York doing Q&As with Dev, which sold out, were fantastic. Next weekend, we brought her to LA and opened LA and did Q&As with her there. Again, just kind of letting everything grow, letting the word of mouth grow, all of that kind of, just, it's a process. I don't know if that answers, hopefully.
Yeah, and like, when did you decide to do an impact campaign? Was that in the plans from this is a question somebody has, like, when did you decide to do this? Yeah. And how do you integrate this impact, and and when did you decide and how you would integrate this impact campaign into an Oscar campaign?
Well, I think we all just kind of, there was a strategist that we had on for a couple of months, I think back in just before Geeta came on, Sean, and Sean gave me a phrase which I thought was really incredible, and we've always kind of sort of stuck with it, which is theatrical plus awards equals impact. So the actual the impact piece, everything is connected, and as Geeta said, the idea of having an awards run, what this moment has given us now is it's given us this incredible platform to talk about these ideas and the issues that are so important for us, right? And I think, for me, because I did a big impact campaign in India with my last film, I loved it. Like, I loved seeing the work that a film can do on the ground, where you're really engaging with people, and you're really
Absolutely
experiencing kind of hearts and minds shift, you're really having dialogue and engaging, and it's not just that it's streaming somewhere, or that you're watching it with an audience. Like, you're literally kind of engaging with it. So that was always something that I knew I wanted to do with this film, and so eventually I just started to see the whole thing as one big impact campaign. And after the awards run is over, then we will start doing the impact piece.
So, there are people who would love advice, like someone here who's just made a self-financed documentary on free speech in the Indian context. Where do you start sharing it with people? How do you get the film out there? you know, and this is like a very long conversation. But I guess in like 20 words or less, Nisha, what advice would you give to an independent filmmaker who's made a self-financed film, and or maybe Annalise as well? Like, what's the first thing you do?
I'd let Annalisa answer that question.
Yeah.
I'll say you should be, I know Nisha does not do this, but I would say best practices to think about your audience and distribution from day one. Because I also think financiers care about those things. No, you can't just make a movie. Okay, yes, Nisha did this in this case, but you should, it's so hard to make a movie, and it's like a little miracle every time a movie gets made. But then if no one sees it, what's the point, right? So, and the best place to see a movie, I'm a little biased, but is in cinemas on the big screen. So you should be thinking about these things from day one. And also, best practice, put money into your budget for distribution. I think distribution plan A should be you are doing it on your own. You're putting together your strategy, your festival circuit, what theater, that is on you, the filmmaker. And then plan B is, oh, great, your film premieres at Sundance and it sells for big MG to a streamer. Fantastic. You can just rip up plan A and throw that away. But 99.9% of the time, you should have plan A being, I'm doing it on my own. Well, with a group, of course, of fantastic people to support you.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I think in Canada, we're limited in our production budgets in terms of what we're like. We can't put a trailer in our production budgets, and maybe it's something we need to talk to our agencies about, that supporting that part of our filmmaking path is really, really critical. Last question before I let each of you say one very short thing is, people want to know where they can see your film, Nisha. Hello, Canadians.
Yeah. So right now it's streaming on TVO, and it's streaming on the NFB website, so nfb.ca, and Knowledge as well. And then eventually, and then it'll have a Netflix rollout soon enough.
Anyway, I'm very excited for you. And I don't know if you have one last thought to share with everyone here about, it could be advice, it could be how you're feeling as we go into the last phase. Voting closes tomorrow. I already voted last night. I just had to do it. And then you're just gonna like get dressed up and have a lovely time, because after tomorrow, you just got to go with it. So a last word from each of you, please. And we'll start with you, Monica.
Well, no, I feel like I've been put on the spot, but I think what I'll say is, so much of this entire campaign, it's Nisha. I think like being that director from day one, she's always been so good at saying, here's what you are good at. I want you to just do this. And here's what this person is good at, and they're going to do that. So I think Nisha's like, she's the dream conductor that you could ever want. And I think there's so much to learn from the way she's navigated this entire campaign. And I think it's one of those things where if you are that director, like, find those people that make you better, find those people that you love to work with, because you are going to be in the trenches. You are going to be talking to them all day, every day. Sometimes, at 2 a.m, at 8 a.m, they will be such an integrated part of your life. So just find people that you love and that believe in you. And I think this entire campaign is representation that you don't know what can happen, and you should never undermine those grassroots efforts and your connections and the people and that will advocate for you. And I'm so proud to be a part of Nisha's team.
And Nisha is very grateful to you, I could tell. And Geeta.
Absolutely. I mean, how you can't say that any better. I think Monica said it beautifully. And, build your allies, build your team, stay true to yourself and to your vision. And, that's it. Just go there.
Yeah.
And Annalisa, because we're going to leave Nisha for the last.
Well, first, I just thank you all again for having us here. This has been so much fun. Thank you for including us. I guess I would say +1 to what Monica said. Nisha, I freaking love her, and I would do anything for her. I'm so glad that we all came together on this special project. I guess I would say also kind of what Geeta said, it's a lot of relationships too. You know, it takes a village, it takes a city, it takes, you know, and people come back around, and Ted Hope is a great example. I worked with him many years ago at Amazon and asked him to moderate this Q&A, and he did, and that's great. So you find these people and you never know where you might be connected to them down the road, but yeah, it's really a lot of relationships.
And of course, last but not least, Nisha, your final thoughts.
I'm just tired. I'm so exhausted. I can't even tell you. I mean, really, like, it has been such an incredible experience. It really has been. I wouldn't change anything. I've loved it, especially because of these women. Really, it is so, everyone, like, we have this incredible team, but this core group of women that I am in touch with every single day, it's like a sisterhood, and it's a really powerful thing that I think we've built, and that's the ultimate thing that I take away. And it's this incredible moment that we're all kind of on the cusp of, but also just what it's leading to, like the kinds of conversations that we're having about how we're going to change the world and move the needle with this. It is so beautiful, Ina. I cannot even tell you. So that's, you know, that is sort of what keeps, I'm really excited for March 10th, but I'm also like, okay, let's go, right? Like, let's do the other piece. Let's do the other piece as well, right? Because that feels to me like the real work, and it's the reason I started making docs, and it's the reason all of us make docs, right? So it's a privilege to be able to be able to have impact with the work that you do.
And
You are
thanks to you, Ina, and to Hot Docs, and to the DGC, to Nathalie, to Lauren.
Yeah. And I really want to say you inspire me. And yes, I've been doing this for a very long time, but your commitment, all of your commitment, again, not just to the statue, because that's only part of it, but to making an impact, making and then distributing an impactful film is really what documentary filmmaking in our community is all about. And thank you very much for being a part of this. And I will see some of you in LA very shortly. Yes. I hope. I'm going to come to your panel at the museum on Sunday night, and try to enjoy the rest. It's really fun. Yes. So thank you. And Lauren, I think you
as well. Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and really give you my biggest heartfelt thanks. I know how busy you are. I know what a journey this is for you, and you've just all been so generous with your time, and I can't tell you how much it means to us. I'm pretty sure everybody in Canada will be holding their breath on March 10th, and so very excited for you.
Thank you.
And yeah, just thanks again so much. For those of you that want to see the film in Toronto, it is playing at Hot Docs Bloor on Thursday, the 28th. I think that's Wednesday, the 28th, sorry. And you know, you're living the metaphor of To Kill a Tiger, really, all of you. So thank you again so much for your time. And
thank you, Lauren, for bringing this together. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so happy it all came together. And I'm sure I'll see all of you around in the future around Toronto.
For sure.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.